Well, it's time again for Second Impressions. It's Erik and Greg here to answer all the marketing questions that are fit to read. Um, and our question today, I really like this one. Um, our competitor outshines us in marketing despite the fact that our customer satisfaction ratings are better. How can we be more like them?
Um, that's an interesting area. So there's a couple of things to that. I'm gonna have to run with some assumptions, since I don't know tons about what these businesses are. It was pretty general. So one area is I would assume that if you're offering comparable like products slash services, then you're probably in a similar price range if it's your competitor or something in that area. And that since you have better customer satisfaction ratings, that it probably means your lifetime value is a bit more. And so I would imagine then the difficulty has to do with that when you say marketing, has to do with really the cost of your acquisitions are high relative to your competitor. Your competitor has figured out some sort of marketing machine to reduce their cost of acquisition. And you're saying, how can we make a marketing machine that reduces our cost of acquisition so it's not as expensive to get each individual client? That would be like another way I would think about like reframing that question. Um, and then going from there. And so it's like if you're spending more to acquire, but your lifetime value is higher than theirs, then you can probably justify spending more to acquire. Like if they're kind of losing out on their lifetime value by not investing in their product or service, and instead most of their investments are geared towards their marketing, then it's really about how you can fund your own marketing machine, not necessarily relative to theirs, but incommensurate with your lifetime value. So if you have a better lifetime value because higher customer satisfaction, which means people stay with you longer, then what you should be figuring out is more ways to fund the development of that marketing machine, that marketing engine that clearly is benefiting your competitor. I mean, the one thing that you could get from that is you could research them, see what keywords are optimized for. You could see what they're spending on um, AdWords and other types of platforms where they have to pick keywords. So you get to crib that information from them. You get to crib information from their customers. Likely, if they're acquiring more, there's going to be more information about how they feel about the product, what is making them seek it out to begin with. So you have like essentially, if they're funding all this information for you, you get to take some of the best parts from that and make decisions about how you want to sidestep that direct competition. And so maybe it's about looking at how they're investing in social media or email or whatever it happens to be that they're getting these benefits from this acquisition machine that they've developed. And then saying, okay, clearly there's an opportunity here to acquire more people and more clients. What is going to be our best path forward based on the knowledge and information we've been able to gather? And I think a lot of people take that for granted. They basically say, okay, these people are doing tons on social media, and so we need to do social media too, and just like push more posts out. I think that's like the natural kind of thing. You see these competitors do something, and you go, okay, we should do that too. It's a Me Too thing. But really, what I'm saying is just use that for research and information to learn from instead of trying to just do the same thing. Figure out like what's going to be the best path forward for you, which more than likely doesn't include necessarily, just doing the same things. It includes figuring out how you're properly funding this machine and its development.
It's moments like the like these that I'm grateful that there are two of us, because you just sort of gave a perspective that I wouldn't have led with, and I'm going to give one that you wouldn't have led with. And by the way, I'm making every attempt possible to look professional now that I've realized that I've been drinking from my most camera friendly mug. Um,
And there's your built-in
and
template.
I've got the dog here to help me out. Um, But I'm going to take kind of a totally different approach, and I'm going to say, um, I'm going to go to the question itself, and I'm going to kind of pull it from a different perspective and say, well, you're starting with the assumption that you need to be more like whoever this other company is, and yet your customers are happy, or whatever you're using to measure your customer satisfaction. Clearly, that's working out for you. And so the question that I would ask is, why do customers like you better? Why are customers gravitating, who have experienced your product? Why are they so loyal to you? And is that something that's coming through in your marketing? Is that something that's possibly scalable, or something that you can pull out? If your product performs that much better, or your customer service is that much better, or the overall experience is that much better, um, is that informing your marketing, and how is that working? And perhaps there's definitely a possibility here that the gap here isn't being created necessarily by funding or by tactics, but possibly in messaging. It could be that this company is sitting on a gold mine um, that they simply haven't been tapping into.
Well, that's definitely true. So I think that's just a complementary facet, because clearly the alternative solution, I would say, is doing more to raise awareness if they have a good marketing machine going. And so the question becomes, I think, for the person who asked this question, is like, what is going to be the best way for you to compete when it comes to driving and building on that awareness, and what messages should you use? So it's just a little bit further into that process. It's the next step. Um, it's like, clearly they're doing more to get their message across, and it's working. So what is going to be your message that isn't meant to compete head on with that, but instead offer some solution that you're clearly doing that people are happier with?
And I'd be curious to know if this is like a David and Goliath kind of situation. If we're talking about, whether the companies that we're talking about are of a similar size,
Mhm.
or if perhaps this bright shiny company is more of an enterprise versus an SMB. I don't know. Um, so I would be curious about all those things, because they can all definitely play a role in what's going on here. But I mean, I would definitely say, I mean, in addition to everything that you said about making sure that their efforts are funded properly, that there is a machine that can be um, that can be optimized and all that. I really would love to know what what the impetus for those customer satisfaction scores are, um, and what can be done to better leverage that in the material as a whole. I really feel like if what they're saying here is true, it feels like a big part of the answer is wrapped up in the question itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, exactly. Like, I think the interesting area is, like, a lot of times we talk to businesses that excel operationally and with their products and whatever it happens to be, because that's what they value. And it's because they could feel it, they could see it, they can understand it. But then when they value this one area of their business and they do well in it, there's often this flip side of it where they undervalue the effort and how much it takes to get the message across about what they're doing, to make the digital world reflect in some way what they're doing operationally and with their product, so that it shines through to a broader audience that isn't necessarily engaged with those things yet. And so I would say there's clearly, like, this value that's been imparted in this other area of their development of their business. But somehow what we need to do is bridge that gap and have them also appropriately value how hard it is and how much effort it takes to build that awareness and offer the knowledge, so that a wider audience beyond the clients are able to experience that brand.
And I'm going to add just one more thing before we cut this off, and I'm going to say there's a lot of effort that we've all done it. It is an absolutely natural thing in business, in just about anything. When you see somebody, when you perceive, whether even if it's true or not, when you perceive that someone is being more successful than you at something, I think our minds all go to that place of what the hell are they doing that I'm not doing? How can I be more like them? How can I play their game better? And I would say to that, don't try to be other people. When you do that in marketing, what ends up is you almost always end up looking like a cheap imitation of whatever brand you're trying to emulate. And so I would say don't do that. Focus on the best version of your brand that you can be. Focus on all of the things that are making your customers so happy. Shine a light on that and see where that takes you.
Exactly.
All right. Well, second impressions, that's going to be a wrap on this one. If you have questions, you can use the email address at the bottom of the screen, and we may very well answer it live on tape on one of these little thingies that we do. So thanks so much, and we will be back.
Later.